This right here is a complete condemnation of the for-profit healthcare insurance industry. Because while they're talking about how socialized medicine, how a public guarantee to the right to healthcare will force us to ration care, we are rationing our own care. We're not talking about months-long waiting lists under the system we have now. We're talking about years-long waiting lists for the system that we have now. There's been a lot of talk today about how improving healthcare opportunities for American families will lead to all sorts of dystopian outcomes, right? There's this idea that we're going to be rationing care. So I'm curious for those of us here to raise your hand if you have been uninsured in your life. Keep your hand raised, and also raise your hand if you've been insured but your deductible was exceedingly expensive. So almost you rarely went to the doctor or got care that you needed. Thank you. I've been there too. I was uninsured less than a year ago. I was uninsured 7 months ago. And so I want folks to raise your hand again, because I know what being uninsured is like. It's not just a financial issue. It is the stress and it is the anxiety when you wake up every morning and you don't know if you're gonna slip on a curb, if you're going to find something on your body that you want to get checked out, if your knee starts to ache. Everything becomes a spiral of anxiety because you don't know how you're going to afford it. So when we talk about rationing care in a for-profit healthcare system with no guardrails, where it's the Wild West, where you're allowed to profiteer off of insulin, off of people's lives, how many of you, in your time of being uninsured or having healthcare that was too expensive, delayed getting a prescription or delayed going to the doctor? So you rationed your own care. Is that correct, Ms. Burton?
Yes, absolutely.
The cost of a for-profit insurance company forced you to ration your own care, correct?
Absolutely.
I know exactly what that's like. I rationed my own health care for 10 years. I was on a self-imposed wait list for 10 years, not going to an orthopedist when my knee hurt, not going to seek mental health care or counseling when my father died. All of those things. You know, what you shared with us, what you had the courage to share with us, Ms. Burton, about your miscarriage, about the fact that you were forced to that you had a miscarriage in the middle of an emergency room, and you said you were uninsured in that time, right?
That's correct.
You were uninsured, so you miscarried in an emergency room, and you never were able to get the follow-up care that you needed. You never knew what happened to your baby, correct?
That's correct.
Because insurance was too expensive, correct?
That's correct.
Because CEOs needed to offer a profit margin, correct?
Correct.
This right here is a complete condemnation of the for-profit healthcare insurance industry. Because while they're talking about how socialized medicine, how a public guarantee to the right to healthcare will force us to ration care, we are rationing our own care. We're not talking about months-long waiting lists under the system we have now. We're talking about years-long waiting lists for the system that we have now. I'll move on quickly.